Let us now take up a sutram in which Panini uses this satsanya, and that sutram is 3.3.14, Ritas Sadva. Now recall the adhikaraha of bhavishyati, which starts from 3.3.3 and goes up to 3.3.15, anadyatane lut, which is sutram which we have studied. So in that adhikara of bhavishyati comes this sutram Ritas Sadva. In fact, we have studied the prior sutram, Rit Sheshe Cha, Rit Sheshe Cha. So we know from 3.3.13, Rit Sheshe Cha, that the affix rit may be used following any verbal root to denote an action which is to be done in the future, to denote a future action. So rit is prescribed Vishyat Samanye as a general future tense. Let us also not forget 3.3.15, Anadyatane lut, which means that if a future action is exclusively not of today, there is no today component to it, then lut has to be used and not rit. So even though rit is Vishyat Samanye, if we have Anadyatane, then lut has to be used. So what that means is that when rit is used, there has to be at least some part of the action which is being done today, in the near future, So if there is no part of the action being done today, then lut has to be used. So from this we know that when we form these participles by bringing in a substitute in place of rit, then those participles are going to be used following a dhatuhu, which is denoting an action which is to be commenced shortly. So the derived participle form will then refer to someone who is going to begin an action shortly, or who is about to do an action. That's an important point to remember, is that the meaning of this participle form is someone who is about to do an action in the near future. And a beautiful example in the Bhagavad Gita is verse 23, chapter 1, Yotshyamanan aveksheham, Yotshyamanan, those who are about to fight, those who are going to begin fighting shortly, very soon. Okay, so now let's continue. By the present sutram 3.3.14, Ritas Sadva, we know that in place of the rit prescribed by the prior sutram 3.3.13, rit sheshe cha, an affix designated as sat may be substituted. Now we also know by the sutram which we just studied, which is 3.2.127, tau sat, that the term shatru as well as shanach has the designation sat. So what this means that in place of rit, shatru or shanach may come as a substitute optionally. But now the optionality in 3.3.14 has an order to it. It is a regulated optionality. What is called as vyavasthita vibhasha. So it does not mean that in every single place where rit is used, it may be optionally substituted by shatru or shanach. There are some situations in which rit has to be substituted by shatru or shanach, and there are some situations in which lit may be substituted optionally by shatru or shanach. So Siddhanta Kaumudi says Vyavasthita Vibhasheyam, which means Vyavasthita Vibhasha Iyam. Tena Prathama Samanadhikaranye Pratyayottarapadayoho Sambodhane Lakshana Hetvoscha Nityam. What this means is that the substitution by shatru or shanach is compulsory in the following cases. The first case is that the derived word is in agreement with, has the same reference as a word which ends in the nominal ending other than the nominative. Like, for example, karishyantam, karisyamanam pashya. So look at someone who is about to do something. Recall that this is very similar to what we saw when we are studying the Shatru Shanach Adesha in place of lat. The Sutram 3.2.124 explicitly said Aprathama Samana Adhikarane. So the same thing applies here. when we bring the adesha shatra or shanach in place of lit. The second category where the substitution of shatru or shanach in place of lit is compulsory is when the derived word, the pratipadikam which is created, is followed by an affix, meaning a tadhita pratyaya, as in the example karishyato patyam karishyataha, which means a descendant of one who's about to do becomes karishyataha. So here there is no choice. We cannot replace lit by tip tashji, we have etc. We have to replace it only by shatra or shanash. The other category is that if the derived pratipadikam is followed by the latter member of a compound. For example, karishyat bhaktihi, karishyato bhaktihi, karishyat bhaktihi, the devotion of one who's about to do. This is a shashti tatpurusha. So if the derived pratipadikam is going to be followed by a latter member of compound, then there is no choice of bringing in tiptashji etc. by 3478. We had to bring in the shatru or shanach adesha by this sutram 3314. The third category is that when the derived word is used as an address in the vocative, as he karishyan, O one who is about to do. Now, this is again similar to what we already saw when we were talking about the shatru shanach adesha in place of lat. That was the sutram 32125, Sambodhanecha. So this one here is similar to that situation we had when we were considering the adesha in place of lat. Similarly here, when we are considering adesha in place of lit, if the derived word is going to be used as an address, then we have to bring in the shatri shanach adesha. There is no choice of bringing in tiptashji etc. by 3478. The fourth category is when the action denoted by the verbal root constitutes a characteristic which is lakshanam or a cause meaning hetu of another action. For example, shaishyamanaha bhokshante yavanaha, which means that the Greeks shall eat lying down. So this action of lying down tells us how they shall eat. So it's a characteristic of the action of eating. That's also a situation where the shatru or shanach adesha is nityam. There's no choice. And in the case of hetu, for example, arjayishyan vasati. So somebody stays in a place in order to earn money soon. So in order to earn money in the future, somebody is staying somewhere. So this is a situation where the action of earning is the reason, is the cause why someone is staying. So in these situations, the shatri shanach adesha has nityam also. Now, this is again similar to what we saw when we were considering the shatri shanach in place of lat. Sutram that time we studied was lakshana hetvoho kriyayaha. So basically the same conditions are applicable here, which means that when a verbal root denoting an action which is either a characteristic or a cause of another action, then following such a verbal root, the lit has to take shatru or shanach adesha. Okay, so now what happens when neither of these conditions are satisfied? When we do have prathama samanadhikaranyam and conditions 2, 3, 4 also not satisfied. So basically conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all not satisfied. Condition 1 is not satisfied, which means that we do have prathama samanadhikaranyam, and conditions 2, 3 or 4, none of them is satisfied. Then what happens? The Siddhanta Kaumudi says prathama samanadhikaranye pi kvachit. So this is the case where we have a choice. There is a choice. Either bring in the tiptashji affixes by 3478, or occasionally we can bring in the shatru shanach adesha by 3314. So for example, karishyati ti karishyan. So someone shall do, or we can use the participle form saying that karishyan devadattaha. So devadatta is one who is about to do. So that way there are two forms. So there is a tingantam rupam where we say karishyati devadattaha, or we can say karishyan devadattaha. So devadatta will do, shall do soon, or devadattaha is one who shall be doing soon. So this is the place where there is a choice. Okay, now that we know when to use shatru or shanach adesha in place of lit, let's derive the form karishyat from the verbal root dikrin karane. So we're considering the example here of karishyantam pashya, karishyantam pashya. We don't have prathama samanadhikaranyam, so we have to bring in the shatru adesha. So We start with kru plus lit by 3-3-13. Lit she cha anubandha lope kru la, and now in place of la of the lit we bring in the Shatra Adesha by 3-3-14, which is litas sadva. And by 3-1-27, we know Shatra has a sat sanya because it says tau sat. Tau sat, the sutram tau sat tells us that Shatra as well as Shanach has the sat sanya. And here by 1-3-78, we are using Sheshat Kartari Parasmay Padam. Sheshat Kartari Parasmay Padam, and Shatra has the Parasmay Pada sanya by 1-4-99 laf parasmay padam. So therefore we choose Shatra because right now we are using 1-3-78 Sheshat Krati parasmay padam, so we have to bring in an affix which has a parasmay pada sanya, which is Shatra in this case. Remove letters by Upadeshe Jananasikrit Rikara Sit Sanya Lashakvatadite Shakara Sit Sanya Tasya Lopa. We get Kru plus At. Now Shatra has come in place of Lit, so by Sthanivad Bhavaha 1-156 Sthanivad Adesho Nal Bidhau. The Shatra inherits the properties of Lit, so that allows us to bring in the Sya Pratyaha by 3-1-33. 3-1-33 Syata Sil R Luto Ho. So we get Kru Sya plus At. Now the Ragamaha comes in by 7-70, which is Rudhanosye. Rudhanosye 7-70 Adyanto Takitau. The Ragamaha joins at the beginning of Sya, so we get Kru It Sya At Anubandha Lope Halantyam Tasya Lopaha. We get Kru Isya At, and now we do the Gunadesha in place of the Rikara of Kru because Isya has a sanya of Ardhadhatukam, so we get Kar Isya At. That's after applying the Sarvadhataka Ardhataka Yoho Uran Raparaha. And finally we do the Atogune to get Karisyat, the Pura Paryoho Ekadeshaha between the Akara at the end of Isya and the Akara at the beginning of At. We do Pura Paryoho Ekadeshaha, we get Karisyat. And then in the Tripadi Karyam we get the Budhanya Shakara Adesha by Adesha Pratyaya Yoho, and Karishyat gets our Padvidika Sanya by 1-2-46, which is Kritadita Samasascha. Now deriving Karishyantam from Karishyat is the same steps like we derived Pachantam from Pachat. So we won't go to them again. The same steps like we derived Pachantam from Pachat. Same thing here, we derive Karishyantam from the Pradabhikam Karishyat. And finally, when we take an Atmanipadam example, derive the Pradabhikam Karishyamana. The example is Karishyamanam Pashya. So we don't have Prathama Samanadhikaranyam. So we derive this from Karishyamana. Again, starting with the same verbal root Kru, Dikrin Karane. So bring in Lit by 3-3-13, the same steps as before. Anubandha Lopaha, Kru La. Now in this case, we are using 1-3-72. Suritajnyataha Kartriviprai Kriyaphale. So Atmanipadam, and by 1-4-100, we know that Shanach has the sanya Atmanipadam, Atmanipada sanya because of Tangana Atmanipadam. So we use the same Sutram 3-3-14, litas sadva along with 3-1-27, Tau Sata. So Shanach has the Sat Sanya. It also has the Atmanipada Sanya because of Tangana Atmanipadam, and in this case we are using 1-3-72. Suritajnyataha Kartriviprai Kriyaphale because its Dhatu Rikrin Karane is a Nyat. It has a Chavarga Panchamanyakara as a It. So we can use Atmanipadam by 1-3-72. So that's how Shanach comes in. And we get Kru Ana by doing Anubandha Lopaha by Dashakvatadite Shakarasit Sanya, and then Halantyam Chakarasit Sanya Tasya Lopaha. And then again this Shanach came in place of Lit, so by Sthanivadade Shunal Vidhau we can apply 3-1-33, which is Yatasi Ilru Luto Ho, and bring in the Pratyaha Sya. So now what we get is that we get Kru Sya Ana Idagamaha as before by 7-70 Rudhanosye Adyanto Takito. We get Kru It Sya Ana Anubandha Lopa Halantyam Tasya Lopaha. And then we do the Gunadeshaha in the place of Rikara of Kru because Isya is a sanya of Ardhadhatukam, so we apply Sarvadhataka Ardhadhataka Yoho or Raparaha. We get Kar Isya Ana. Now here we have an Angam Karisya which is ending in a Akaraha. So we have a akaraha belonging to an angam. It's followed by ana. So by anemuk, 7 to 82, the akara takes the muk agamaha, and by adyantau takitau, it joins at the end of the akaraha, following the akaraha. So we get karisya muk ana, anubandha lopaha upadesha jananasika it, rantyam tasya lopaha, we get karisyamana. And finally the shatvam by 8, 3, 59 adishapatyaya yoho. So that's how we get the form karishyamana, which gets the pratipadika sanya by krityadita samasascha. And since the vivaksha is pulling dvitiya ekvachanam, we bring in the pratyaya by 412, and then amipurvaha becomes karisyamanam. So that's the derivation of the form karisyamanam. Now obviously we can notice that the angakaram which takes place up to the form karishya is common when we were deriving the tinganta rupani. For example, karishyati, karishyanti, karishyasi. The karishya form remains the same, and then we get karishyat. If we deriving it parasyapadam, the participle form, we get karishyamana, atmanepadam form. So for example, we say gamishyati, that form is well known to us. So up to gamishya, that karam remains the same. All the operations remain the same. We get the participle form gamishyat, for example. If you say lapsyate, then up to lapsya is a common derivation. We get lapsyamana, and so on and so forth. So we can take a shortcut because we know the form up to sya, and then we get, like gamishyati, so we get gamishyat, and we get lapsyate, we get lapsyamana. So we take the form up to sya, and from then we can proceed to either add at or add the ana, but then the akaraha at the end of the angam takes the muk agamaha, so effectively we are adding ma ana, which is mana. So that is a shortcut to deriving these forms from the tinganta rupani, which are already familiar to us.